Okay. I'm going to share my screen and then we'll just start and people will just come on in. This is going to be recorded for any grantees that are missing, or if you feel this is, you are attending this not orientation, this webinar, and if there's any staff that you think would benefit from watching this webinar, definitely send them the YouTube link. I will send you the YouTube link once it's all uploaded. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll go ahead and start. So thank you all for coming. Today we have not so many things on the agenda, but then things that will take some a longer time. And so I'm really hoping and excited to hear the conversation that will take place. But today, obviously in the chat box function, please put your name, what agency you're from. And then we have one of my fellow peers from the ELD, Karina. She will come and talk about the fellowship design team opportunity. And then PSU will talk about the evaluation on the equity fund evaluations. They'll talk with you and work with you on rules and interpretations of that. And then I'll just do some quick reminders at the end. And so if you haven't done so already, there's some of you that have already done it. Please put your name and which agency you're from. There's 26 agencies. Hoping there's at least 26 of you here. If not, then whoever is missing, I will connect with afterwards to watch this webinar. Okay. Thank you for having your video cameras on as well. It's always good to see your faces. Now that we meet bi-monthly, I miss you guys. I miss you all. So there's some of you that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this person in so long. And it's just good getting to see you all. And so seeing your faces on the screen is definitely a blessing. We're just gonna go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna to have Karina. Karina, you can come on. I will mute myself and you could go ahead and talk about the fellowship design team. Okay.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good morning, everyone. I'm Karina Guzman Ortiz, she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the ELD. I think I've peeked my head in here a few times. I really enjoy this group and just the conversation, and think the community is great. So happy to be here. This time I'm here to just share a little bit about a fellowship that is in the works. So we, through the PDG grant, the preschool development grant, I think it was 2019, we got a grant to develop a fellowship program for early learning professionals. And, we went through the process, sought out a bidder, and we are now working with a contractor, specifically Metropolitan Group, for those who might be familiar. And we are gathering members for what we are calling a fellowship design team. And so this team is going to help us develop and create the design of the fellowship. That means that it's a lot of creative work still ahead. What Kimberly is sharing here is kind of our call for like recruitment. And just to share a little bit about what we have envisioned so far in terms of the fellowship is that this fellowship is for folks in the early learning sector, right? Professional educators, folks who work in programs. The criteria is yet to be designed, but understanding that at the state level, there are gaps in terms of policy making, right? Understanding that a lot of the policy has been made and led by just the dominant white culture, and that it has been very difficult to bring in different perspectives and experiences and just professional experiences as well into state level policymaking, job opportunities, for example. And so the way that this has been written out so far, the idea, the vision is to create a fellowship that is cross-agency with our top 5 agencies in mind. That includes ELD, that includes Oregon Department of Education, DHS, Community Housing as well, and OHA, Oregon Health Authority. And so understanding that all of these different sectors impact young children, right? Well, we know that all of these different sectors impact the health, the well-being, and the education of young children and families. And so the idea is that we would get fellows and place them at these agencies so that they could we could learn from them and just have the on the ground experience, their perspective, right, from the field directly, but that we could also share more about what the policymaking process is. And so that we could kind of debunk and reduce the gap of knowledge that sometimes exists from on the field to the government setting. So in terms of recruitment, how many fellows exactly, we're thinking currently somewhere between 5 and 10. A lot of this is just idea. And so what's really exciting about the fellowship design team is that folks will be able to join this table and share from their own professional experience, lived experience, and what they've seen in the field, and contribute that to the design of the fellowship. So I'm here to share a little bit about what's in the works. The idea is that this would be kick off in 2020, where are we? Oh gosh, early 2023 is kind of the idea. Some things takes work, some things take time and work, right? So just wanting to design it very intentionally. Currently, the first year at least, it would be funded through grant funding only. And so the idea and part of the work is also to find more sustainable funding, right? We would want this to be an opportunity for more fellows to be able to come in and learn from, share. I think it's like the two-way knowledge sharing is something that we're being really intentional about so far, is wanting not to just say, hey, come and tell us and give us your experience. It's share share your experience and all of the offerings that you might have and take from us as well, right? So that it's collaborative. I am open for questions. If anyone has any questions or leading thoughts, Kimberly, you tell me how much. I think I had 10 or 15. Might not take all that time, but I will also drop my information in the chat box here if you're interested in participating in this design team. We are definitely recruiting. Our first meeting right now is scheduled for next Tuesday, but if you can't, next Thursday from 1 to 3. But if you can't make that and are interested, please just connect with me, because definitely want to include different perspectives, especially if you have experienced some of these barriers yourself or have seen it with colleagues and in the field overall. So any questions for me?
Yeah. How big do you envision this design team to be, and how many people are you recruiting?
Yeah, so I think that's my wrong address. Sorry. I trimmed my email. We are recruiting, I think kind of our just number out there was about 12 people. We don't have an exact number in mind. We are reaching out to folks from, representatives from CCR&Rs and hubs as well, since they do interact a lot with early education professionals. We have definitely wanting to include a few educators themselves, right? Early learning professionals who are either educators or directly in the field for sure. We are also connecting with, trying to connect with a professor who teaches a leadership in our early learning leadership program to bring in that perspective. So anywhere, we're thinking about 12 people, but it just wanted to make it a very diverse table of thought is one of the main goals as we get started and start thinking about what does this look like and what are the priorities and how do we make it meaningful for fellows. I think that's one thing that is really important to us, that it's meaningful and an opportunity for fellows as well.
Karina, I had a question about stipends or other supports for participants.
Yeah, that's a conversation that we've kind of started. It's interesting to watch how some things, depending, if it's legislative policy already, for example, sometimes have funding. This being a grant, it's we're having to look a little bit more into it. So that is a conversation. I don't want to say yes or no. As we think about fellows, I think that's the other piece too, right? Are we compensating fellows? I just want to, that is something that we are that is part of this, right? It's like, how do we compensate fellows? How do we compensate their time? And how do we make sure that we, even a part of the design process is going to be, what kind of agreement can we perhaps establish with, organizations that fellows might already be at, so that they can be allowed the time to come in and learn, the state side of things, the policy aspect of things, but continue employment, because we can't guarantee a job afterwards, right? Like, there's just that reality, but how do we compensate fellows as well? So Lorelei, I don't have an exact question, but it's something that we're in conversation with about compensating design team folks for sure. Thank you. Great. And I dropped in my correct email this time, and my work cell phone if you're interested in calling or texting and want to chat a little bit more about it. And Zakia, I see you in the chat, so I'll go ahead and connect. Kimberly has this document, which maybe we can forward for folks to review. And if you're interested in reviewing it a little bit more and have more questions, please do connect. I am considering definitely coming back to this team as we continue to design that, and just sharing some of the process to include as many voices as we possibly can along the way.
Awesome. Well, yes, I will definitely include that document with the PowerPoint slides and the webinar link. And so you'll have that. I think it's a great opportunity. I know that when I was a grantee like you, before I came to the ELD, I was an OPK grantee, and I've always said, I want to go work at the ELD. Like, I want to go work at the state, and like some of the decisions doesn't make sense. Like, I need to be at the table. Like, I used to be a grantee that was really upset. I will be very transparent with that, just not understanding why things were done. And now that I'm here at the ELD, I'm like, oh my goodness, now I understand why these decisions are made. There's so much red tape on this. There's so much like legalities behind things, right? And so, just to hear that there's a fellowship opportunity, for, individuals to learn how to even understand, what's happening at the state, how we process things and things like that. I think it's a great opportunity to understand that, to get that under your hands, the experience. And so definitely, I will send the document, definitely take a look at it. I think it's a great opportunity. I would, if I was not the ELD, I probably would have jumped on it. And so I would have. And so the opportunity is there. And so definitely connect with Karina if you are interested once you receive that document and look through it. Okay.
Thank you, Kimberly. And just want to echo there are very few of us, people of color at the ELD, just point blank. And that's just one aspect of the perspective that we do bring, right? And there are many, many others. So just really want to encourage folks to think about the design team. And then once we're ready for fellows, we will definitely be coming back. We're a little ways from there, but just know that this is in the works.
Definitely. It's the ELD is committed, to having more diverse staff. That's one thing that we're definitely aiming for. And so, we want more people at the table, more perspectives at the table, like everyone that we can include, be as inclusive as we can. And so definitely take a look at the opportunity. Okay. So next on the agenda is PSU. And so Lorelei, I made you a co-host so you would be able to share your slides. And so we will move on to next agenda.
Cool, thank you. And I will now find myself somewhere. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. Oops, not yet. First, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Oop. Sorry, folks. Here I go. Okay, back to the beginning. Awesome. Before I jump in, it's great to see everybody. We're in a new year. Look at this. Oh my gosh, maybe it's gonna be a better one. I don't know. But it's really good to see everybody's faces again. I'm excited about this experiment that we are trying out today with the webinar. The evaluation leadership group is really diving in this month to kind of the nuts and bolts of designing the evaluation, specifically the outcome study piece. And we keep hearing from folks on the ELG that it's really important to them to get input and, you know, all your thoughts. I mean, really be thought partners with this larger group. And the PSU team couldn't agree more. So we've been trying to think of ways without scheduling like additional meetings or putting more responsibilities on your already full plates to include you in this design process. So that's what we're kind of hoping we can do today, is put a few questions in front of you, provide a little background information about what we will be doing with the evaluation leadership group, and see what your thoughts are and get your input that way. And then, you know, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, this is kind of an experiment. So we're also hoping to hear from you afterwards, whether or not this was interesting or helpful, and if it might be something that we could do again moving forward, maybe on sort of a semi-regular basis, specifically with this part of this webinar time, if that makes sense. So let me get started. Okay, so today, what are we specifically hoping to talk about? We want to give you some background information on the legislative requirements for the E-Ceph evaluation, and then we're hoping to break up into small groups so you can have some conversation about how we really want to interpret these requirements, particularly from culturally specific perspectives. So what we know is that the E-Ceph evaluation is pretty unique. It's kind of different from a lot of typically required evaluations, in that we've been given more leeway around how outcomes might be defined. So we're seeing this as a real opportunity to get creative, think outside the box, maybe push back on some white dominant approaches that don't always necessarily feel like a great fit. At the same time, we've heard from many of you, and this makes so much sense, that there may also be reasons that we want to keep some of those mainstream dominant definitions just in order to be strategic, right? There's a real sort of pragmatism to demonstrating effectiveness and making the case for continued funding. So there's kind of a tension there that we're wrestling with. And that's one of the things that we're inviting you to really talk with one another about today and kind of do some brainstorming around. Okay, so there's a million words on this slide. No surprise, this is from the legislative rules that are associated with E-Ceph. So this is some kind of foundational background information that we think it's important for us to all have a shared understanding of. This is, and we're just focusing on these two that I've highlighted in yellow for today. C and D we're also addressing in the evaluation, but we'll return to that. So just for today, focusing on positive child indicators, including early childhood school readiness, and positive family indicators, including family stability. So that's what's in the legislative rules. This is kind of the baseline minimum thing that the evaluation needs to address according to the law. Here's another whole big bunch of words, and I'm not gonna bore you to death, right, by reading through all of this right now. But we did put it in a Google Doc for you all so that you have it for reference. So in your conversations, if it's helpful to you to refer back to these definitions, these again are drawn from the legislative rules. So these were put together as a way to guide understanding of what these indicators are meant to mean, for lack of a better way to say that. Again, knowing that for this evaluation, all of these indicators are open to interpretation from a culturally specific perspective. So that's what we're really trying to get at today in this conversation and an ongoing basis with the ELG. So what we're hoping we can do when we go into our breakout groups is open up that Google Doc that we'll share in the chat. choose a group member to take notes. They don't have to be like perfect notes or anything, but just for your own sake, so you can recall kind of the main points that came out of your discussion. Choose somebody to share back those highlights when we come back together as a larger group. And then we put together these discussion questions. And again, this is like whatever is useful for you. You don't have to go through each one in order or anything like that. It's like what resonates with you, what speaks to you here, what does your particular group really want to, dig into a little bit. We have 20 minutes, and these are really complicated questions. So nobody's going to solve all the world's problems today, right? But this is the beginning of a conversation. And hopefully we'll help jumpstart a more in-depth conversation that we're also going to have next week with the leadership group, if that makes sense. So I kind of rushed through all that because I want to make sure that we have time for these conversations, but let me for sure stop sharing and kind of open it up to questions. Or I was amazingly crystal clear.
You were.
Thank you, Adina. Well, if there aren't any questions, maybe we should just pop into those breakout groups and get started.
Okay, I have created the breakout rooms, and then you all will go accordingly.
Thank you.
Oops, how much time again? I forgot to put
I
down the
think
time.
20 minutes is what we had
20 minutes.
talked about.
Okay.
I'm sorry, are we meant to put our notes right all into that shared document?
That was the hope.
Okay.
All right. All righty.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry, my ducks that are right outside my window are quacking like crazy. So I was trying to wait until they were finished. I think that they are. Awesome. Well, I hope that everybody had interesting conversations. I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to share out. How many groups did we have, Kimberly?
There were 6.
There go the ducks.
I can I hear the ducks. This is Shauna Johnson with Todos Juntos. I can share out because then I have to actually leave a little bit early. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
No, you're
Okay,
on mute.
sorry. I was trying to go back and forth with my notes. I'm actually on vacation in Arizona and I'm on my phone trying to look at my notes. So, okay, so there was 3 of us in our group and we had Ready, Set, Go, Todos Juntos, and Juntos Abriendos. Sorry if I said that wrong. So for the first question, like, what are you hoping children and families will get out of our programs? We said that to have them feel supported and social emotionally supported for the whole family. Parents learn how to advocate for themselves and reach out for supports when needed. We said that children, in children programs, we want parents to realize that school readiness is more about interacting with your children when they're at a young age, reading to them, telling them family stories, creating that emotional bond that supports the child, so that this actually helps them better to be ready for school versus like having that stress of having them learn the ABCs and all this, and trying to get them so ready literacy wise that they skip all that emotional bonding part. That's really the core for them to be able to learn. Then also to create community and create skills that are culture specific to them, and that children have access to educators that represent their culture and books in their language. And then we got to what kind of data might be strategic to collect. We said, well, like I would like to collect more like on observations in some of our programs that show how our programs are doing for the actual families versus like data on like the children, because we would like to prove that we are doing what the families need us to do also, on top of having like the data collection. And Ready, Set, Go said for parenting education, they would like to collect data that shows how their program has empowered the families, how they feel after they've taken the classes, how do they benefit from what they've learned, and self-care, how to navigate the school systems and how they get involved in the schools to better advocate for their children, to be able to collect that. And then also we felt that the data numbers are very important for all of our programs also, but the stories that families share are very powerful and they need to be captured. And that's as far as we got. We didn't get down to the other questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I put it on that shared Google document, just like in note form. So
Awesome. Is there another group?
We didn't really get through all of them. We spent the first 20 minutes kind of going through all the negative aspects of what could go wrong or what things need to be considered. Like one of the other ones who was access, just because of what we're going through right now, the internet access for the families, and then also technology. They actually have the hardwire to log on where it's a bigger screen to be able to interact to with their children. In our groups, at least, it's sometimes really hard for them to set up the camera so that we can see the child and the mom, because our groups are parent-child interaction groups. We do distribute materials to them every month, but also Brandy from NIA, they do that as well. One of the other gals, they are actually in person. So there's different things that the people that decide the grant we feel need to consider too. There's a lot of differences between all of us right now because of COVID.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, we're definitely not living in like quote unquote normal times right now. So that's something I think that will be important context for this whole evaluation, actually. We'll probably have to keep bringing it back to that.
And I was in that, here, I'll turn my video on, sorry. I was in that same group, and one of the other points that we discussed was that Eurocentric lens. We need to really be mindful of that as we're evaluating families. So constant check-in on that as well.
That was another good point. And I'm sorry, I think it's Sandy, if I remember correctly. She said that too, that my idea of what a good family home for a child might not be the same for somebody else.
Yes, the group that I was in talked quite a bit about how family stability could be defined very differently for different families. And that it seems like there are some assumptions that are probably baked into these indicators that maybe need to be named. And there go my ducks.
Yeah, our group talked a lot about preparing families and preparing children to be in a different type of environment, but giving them, you know, that social emotional strength and the language in order to be able to express kind of what they've gone through and what they're, you know, what they're going through. You know, there was a lot of talk about how to gauge that in individual conversations with parents, potentially some sorts of, you know, surveys or assessments, but a lot of narrative. How did this program impact your family? How do you feel like it helped your child? And then some specific things that were talked about were like a child being able to name an adult at the center or wherever they're at being educated that they know loves them and cares for them, or can name, you know, 5 things that they love about themselves. So giving them that firm foundation upon which they can enter into a new environment where who knows what will come at them, but they have that stability within themselves, and then the family as a whole to be able to have that common language and understanding, I think is kind of what I heard.
Yeah, our group talked as well about focusing on the narrative and how that really shows what the families are going through and how they're improving through the programs that are being offered. For some specific type of data, they brought up possibly looking at immunization records and how that could be a indicator of a you know, healthy child and healthy family, as well as possibly connecting the programs that are offered to the families and how that relates to their family stability. So things like rent assistance, bill assistance, and making that connection be shown.
Yeah, I would just throw it open to anybody if you have thoughts that you might like to share, whether you talked about it in your small group or not.
Hi, this is Valerie. Since you're throwing it open, we did talk a little bit about what we wanted and hope that our children and families would get out of the programming that we have. And one of the things brought up was that we wanted our parent and child, or caregiver and child, whatever it is, that they have a better bond, or that they build these bonds so that it would help with the child's education. And we talked about that and how we come from different backgrounds, and that you could draw from the strength of that, the culture that the child comes from, and that you could build upon that, and that they would become better students. They would become better, it would be good programming for the center itself. We also talked a little bit about the data and how we qualitative versus quantitative, and how it was fun. At the end we did talk about how both make sure both of them do need to be captured in some sort, because from the qualitative you get the stories, and from the quantitative you get the numbers that some people look for. But all in all, we had some good discussions, and I really want for our children to know that it's okay being Warm Springs. It's okay being Wasco. It's okay being Native American, and that you have strengths that come from your people that will get you through, whatever it is that comes to you and against you, with you.
I think accepting who they are is very, very huge, because in my family and other people of my same culture, the kids get to a certain point where they're embarrassed to speak their own language, and they don't want to, and then slowly they start losing it because of that.
I don't know if Jeff wanted to, don't want to throw you under the bus there, Jeff, but if you wanted to share a little bit more, or maybe something that I left out, or any of the others in my group.
Yeah, I'll respond. And thank you, Valerie. That was a really good summary of what we talked about. We started off by describing what our programs did, and then looking over my notes, I was really interested to see that we were really focusing on measures of parent development rather than child development. Parent-child interaction, advocacy, helping parents draw on their own strengths and their cultures. And it's kind of striking, because we weren't really talking about child development issues very much at all. So I'll just leave it at that.
If I could add to that, I would say from an infant toddler mental health perspective, that parent development is also child development, that they are intertwined, they are directly linked as well. And so I personally see them as the same. The same, even though I hear what you're saying, that it's not specifically we'll work on this area of development with the child, but that especially in early learning, and that attachment piece with the caregiver and with adults is absolutely linked to all development.
Yeah, I was actually reflecting prior to this meeting when we were putting together the Google Doc that even the separation of like child indicators from family indicators reflects a certain worldview and understanding of like what a family is about. Well, Kimberly, I think we had said we'd do 15 minutes, so I don't want to run over. This has been great from the PSU side. Really, really appreciate everybody's thoughts here. Very helpful and will be, I think, so useful in bringing back to the leadership group next week as well. So thank you.
Thank you
right.
too.
So I am sharing my screen again, and I am going to go back to our quick PowerPoint. And so these are just some quick updates. Email change at the ELD, we've changed our email address. And so as you can see, there's old and new. And so obviously I'm emailing you, you have our new updated emails, but if you are having to, if there's anyone that you feel should connect with us, please give them our new email address. I believe all ODE employees have this new address. I'm not sure about the whole all state staff. And then another one too is Dr. Jenny Mendoza would be attending some check-ins with me this next couple of months. You know, she just wants to get to know the equity fund grantees. She is an integral person that's a part of the equity fund evaluation. She sits in every meeting that I have with PSU on the evaluation and just how things are going. And so she just wants to meet the equity fund grantees and just get to know you all. And so she'll be sitting in some of the check-ins. And so I will email you in advance to let you know that she'll be in the meeting. And so just wanted to give you all that heads up. And then just the reminders as well, the 15th is Saturday. Please turn in all your reports. There's just a few left, the program service delivery calendars that I need. And there's some reports as well. And so please complete those. Ongoing support. There has been some, I know some new staff. So if there's any new staff that would like to attend the new staff orientation, please send me an email and I will send you the invitation. And same thing as reporting TA, you know, like for me to help you with any reporting questions you may have, anything like that. So these are the dates for the next upcoming supports. And so just shoot me an email, okay? And that is all today. So thank you all for attending. I will attach PSU slides, my slides, the document from Karina and all that, and send it all to you in an email with a link to this YouTube clip once it's all uploaded. So thank you all for attending. And it's good. Thank you all for being a part of the conversation. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Mhm.
Bye. Oh, I can't hang up.
Thank you. Bye-bye.